Welcome to the DudeFaxe podcast. We're four guys who in the past all served in the same youth ministry together. Now, more than 10 years later, 10 years older, but not really 10 years more mature, we felt it was time to join forces once again. So now we create weekly podcasts dealing with pop culture, ministry, and church life, and mixed all throughout is a healthy dose of the humor you would only expect from old youth pastors. So if you love Jesus, the local church, and laughter, you're going to fit right in. We encourage you to sit back, relax, grab an ice cold Dr. Pepper, and enjoy this week's episode of the DudeFaxe podcast. All right. Matthew McConaughey in his house here on the DudeFaxe podcast. That was really white and nerdy. I apologize for that, fellas. Joining us today, special guest Roger Dunn, apparently a big-time Kentucky Wildcat fan.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't be?
Sane people.
I mean, I feel like basketball teams that are good probably like the Wildcats.
Yeah.
What do you think about your basketball coach leaving?
Well, I think it was time. Definitely time. And, I mean, we've already got the top two players in the state signed for next season. I don't know if he signed more than a couple of Kentucky players in his 15 years. So I think it's good.
Good. Do you wish him luck at Arkansas?
I wish him demise when they come visit Rep Arena.
All right.
Yeah, so it's unfortunate that you're a Wildcat fan.
Yeah, I hear that a lot being here in Tennessee.
Like the hard cut that's gonna go from talking about that. Yeah, it's unfortunate. I don't know.
We just won't talk about our technical difficulties here.
Yes.
We are a highly professional podcast.
Yeah,
and,
of course.
We're getting better.
Yeah.
We're getting better. Roger, do you listen to the DudeFaxe any at all?
Oh, I do.
You do?
Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite episode?
The one that I listened to.
All right. This is honest.
Number 60. I listened to it so I could see what the vibe in the room would be before I came in.
Mm-hmm. So you haven't listened to one with Grant.
Good deal.
I have not.
That's probably why you still agreed to be on the podcast tonight.
Okay. Yeah, all I remember is Jeff's exciting baseball game that he was at.
Oh, yeah.
Episode 60.
What happened with that first game that ended in the tie?
It ended in a tie. Apparently, in Little League, you can end in a tie these days. So, what is the world coming to?
They're all winners, Jeff.
Yep. They did win the second game, though. So, that they played a doubleheader against the same team. They tied and then beat them. So, I say they won the series. But, yeah.
Well, that's just sad.
Well, speaking of sad, Josh, your daughter's about to get married,
My
right?
daughter is about to get married. Thanks, man.
Sad?
I wasn't thinking about that for a second. Yeah, a week from tomorrow. Or
Can we talk about why
days.
Ethan continues to show up shirtless on our news feeds?
Yeah, I'm hoping it ends when they get married.
For some
That's
reason,
when it's supposed to begin.
Notifications for him started popping up. In my Facebook notifications, and it's just like a little, it's the thumbnail of his profile picture. So every time I go to look at my Facebook notifications, I just see shirtless Ethan.
Thank you, Ethan. We know you're listening. We appreciate it.
Yeah, so let's just not talk.
But you're looking great, buddy.
Yeah, he's
Awesome.
He's getting together. He had his fireman physical test and written test over the weekend, so he had been getting in shape for that, and only that.
That's right.
So
nothing else.
Yeah,
He's also got to be ready for those fireman calendars.
that's what it is. Yeah. So we mentioned earlier that we have Roger Dunn in studio with us. Roger attends church with me, and but more importantly, I don't know if it's level of importance, but the reason he's here tonight is not because he's a Kentucky Wildcat fan. In fact, if we knew he would dress like this, we probably would have rescinded the invitation. There you go. He is he and his wife are the fairly new, about a year old now, year long, directors at Coldstream Christian Camp located in Adams, Tennessee. This camp holds a dear spot in the DudeFaxe collective heart.
Yes.
As we have all spent time there. Jeff and I were there as campers back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
And then we, with Ryan, and I don't think Grant was there, but we took students from a church we served in over to Coldstream. And but now you're the man out there.
Yeah. I'm still trying to fix the cabins y'all ruined while you were there.
We did. Sorry.
Yeah. There's some probably things we shouldn't discuss.
There's a lot of shaving cream and like Olympic sports that we invented. So, yeah.
Oh, was David Cates there? Because it may have been his fault. We blame it on him.
I guarantee it's his fault, whether he was there or not.
Yeah, no, we've been here just over a year. I think like a year and 1 week was when we arrived at camp, and we hit the ground running. We have it. It's kind of been nonstop since.
So, what got you into that line of work, into being a camp director? That I've always thought that would be a neat vocation to have.
Yeah, I mean, to be quite honest, I mean, I felt it was God's calling. I had been feeling the call to camp ministry for a while, and it just never worked out timing-wise. Of course, I was basing it off of my timing, and we know God's timing is different. So, it's just something that growing. Well, I worked a lot of camps throughout my sort of late teens and into my 20s. And none of them were Christian camps, but I still enjoyed just the atmosphere of being there. And then when I finally realized I felt God calling me to go into ministry, then I'm like, well, I don't necessarily feel called to pastor a church, but maybe pastoring a camp, which is ultimately what we end up doing. Is just kind of shepherding along the campers that are there and the groups that come through. And it felt really good to finally just surrender fully to what God was calling us to do.
That's really neat. So where did you guys move from?
So we were in Rhode Island. And I had previously, just before working at camp, had worked for the American Red Cross in the disaster services area. And Rhode Island is totally different than Tennessee.
I can imagine.
I assume.
And my wife, and we've got two kids, Hannah, who's 10, and Zechariah is 6. And they both were born in Connecticut, as well as my wife Heather was born in Connecticut. So they're all native to the Northeast. I was an oddball. I was born up in Michigan.
Okay.
But I did end up growing up in Tennessee and Kentucky. I am a graduate of the University of Tennessee Martin. And so technically, I'm a graduate of the University of Tennessee. That's what my degree says. And it doesn't burn when it's in my hand. So,
were you a Kentucky fan before you went to school?
Okay, I can tell you the exact moment I became a Kentucky fan. 1984. We're at the bowling alley. That's where every Kentucky fan starts out.
Yeah.
At the bowling alley in Union City, Tennessee. And I'm watching Tennessee versus Kentucky, and Kenny Skywalker just literally flew through the air and dunked the ball. And I'm like, I was just dumbfounded. And that was the moment I became a Kentucky fan.
Like, this is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
didn't he win a slam dunk contest in the NBA?
I think he did. I think
he did.
I know he was in it, and Rex Chapman was in one, and a few other Kentucky players.
Well, at least you were a fan before going into
Yes.
the UT system.
Yes. Yes.
That would require another conversation.
It would. For the record, I don't dislike Tennessee. I root for Tennessee, except when they play Kentucky.
Okay.
Which I've been told that's not realistic by a couple of people. They said you can't, you have to be one or the other. You can't sort of be in the middle.
Well, there's this whole thought that it's SEC first, and during March Madness, as SEC teams were just falling left and right. I heard from I have another friend who's a Kentucky fan, and because you guys crashed pretty early on, and he said, yeah, I'm going to be rooting for Tennessee now. And I just didn't get it because I rooted actively against every SEC team in the tournament except for Tennessee.
Yeah, it's called grace.
Yeah, but if you're reformed, then those teams aren't chosen.
Yeah,
yeah, that's true.
Especially Alabama. Can ever
hate Alabama. Hate them. So you're at Coldstream. Your wife, your family, you live on site.
Yep.
And so what does ministry kind of look like there for you then? Like, what does that look like for you as a camp director with these groups coming in?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, for those who don't know where we're located, we're in Robertson County. And I don't know if I get in trouble being in Montgomery County and saying that. Like, am I okay with that?
I think that's okay.
Anyway.
It's not really a rivalry.
Okay, good. We're about literally maybe 8.5 miles from the studio here, and we're out in the middle of the farm field, and we basically the camp has been there since 1980, and I can go into the history a little bit more later, but ministry is basically serving as a place that kids and adults and families and pastors and missionaries can all come and just experience God out in His creation and just find a place where they can, they can find the rest that they need. And sometimes that rest is just being away from a city. Maybe they're a church in Nashville and they're just coming out to the city, or maybe that rest is just sitting by the lake and just being alone with God. But the ministry is both our summer camp, where we have campers come out, and then we also rent the facility out to groups that can come out and run their own camps.
Is there still incredible fishing there?
The fishing, I don't know what the fishing was like back in the 20s when y'all were there, but it's definitely incredible now.
All right.
We have an aquatic person who has stocked the lake for us and takes care of the algae, and he's done amazing things with the lake. We've got a huge crop of crappie, and we've got some bass and catfish and really good fishing.
I remember we took sixth graders there, and there were sixth grade girls who'd never fished, and so you're having to put the worm on the hook for them, and then after you put the worm on the hook for one sixth grade girl, you go to the next sixth grade girl. Well, that sixth grade girl who's now got her line in the water is reeling in like a giant bass, and you're having to run over there and then take that off, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
But that was some fun memories at Coldstream.
Nice.
We also scared the bejeebers out of a bunch of sixth graders on that trip as well. Their souls may still lurk the trails out there somewhere. What's your favorite part about being out there and seeing groups come in and out?
Yeah, my favorite part is just seeing how excited, when a group arrives, how excited the kids are, how excited the parents are too, and getting them again out of their element. I know for our summer camp, We don't allow any electronics, so we're literally wanting them to disconnect from all social media and everything else, just so they can really immerse themselves into being fully there with God. Definitely my favorite part is just seeing the excitement and the joy that is coming from their experience.
So in your short time there, like if you were able to like document like these God moments, hey, he really showed up in this way or that way. Because I know we've done an episode. We may have done 2 episodes on summer camp last year. There's just so much to talk about with that. And, we understand as people who worked in youth ministry, that camp is, man, it can be such a powerful week. And God really seems to work in that environment, because you're removing all the distractions and as many silly stories as we can tell about the things that happen at camp. There's probably just as many of those God things. What are some of those that you've seen?
I think a couple of things come to mind. One of them is sort of a personal thing where our daughter, who I mentioned is 10, she went to the elementary overnight camp last year. And during their rest hour times after lunch, they'll go back to their cabin for a little bit and just have a little bit of downtime. And I remember her camp counselor coming up to us at one point in time and saying, hey, just want you to know, I'm very proud of Hannah. Hannah would basically sit on her top bunk and invite, other kids up, and they would read the Bible together. And, and some of them would ask questions, and Hannah would try to do her best to explain it. And it just was such a moment of just joy and pride as a father, knowing that maybe a little bit of what her mother and I and others in her life have been praying for is starting to come to fruition. I think the other thing that comes to mind and really sort of God moments really has been the generosity from the community and from donors and even from the Bridge, the church that we go to. We've had a few different times where some men from the church came out. My sister uses a wheelchair, and we needed to get her into the house because it wasn't easy for her to try to get up the steps walking. And literally, I think it was 6 or 7 guys from the Bridge came out and 6 hours had a ramp built on our house. And it just, that's something God has really taught me and prepared me for is you just have to be open to the generosity, because people want to serve. People want to be generous.
Yeah, they're looking for a way.
Yeah.
They're looking, and we've talked about that as well. Like a huge part of just the Christian community, the biblical community that we have, is a sharing and meeting of needs. And I think I told you this pretty early on. Just said, you have to let us know what you need. And you've done that. And it's been overwhelming and annoying at times. I'm just kidding. It hasn't been. But I'm thankful that you've done that. It's allowed people to step up. I do want you in a moment to share with us just, you guys are getting ready to hit into busy season, right? You've got the camps lined up. You've got groups coming. So I'd love for you to share with us maybe some of the prayer needs or things that you guys have right now. But before you do that, Coldstream has a unique history in how it was started and the reasons why and kind of what that's been, but then also what it's meant that you've kind of stepped into as well. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. So I think I mentioned earlier, 1980 was when the camp started. Really, the idea of it started before that. The owner, Mr. Joe Goodman, he still lives in a farmhouse right up by the camp. with his wife, Miss Linda, and Mr. Joe, as he describes it, was kind of a rebellious young man. He and his brother used to camp out down by the springs on their property, and they would camp out there quite a bit. And somebody at one point in time had mentioned to Mr. Joe, well, you know what? You should really think about using some of this land to start a camp. Mr. Joe had served in the military, and he came back and he's like, no, this land is for farming. He grew up in a farming family. His dad was a former commissioner of agriculture in Tennessee, so that was his lifeblood. But I think all of us here probably know that when God gets a hold of you and he wants you to do something, it's hard to find traction going any other way except the way that he wants you to. So Mr. Joe eventually surrendered and ended up donating, I think, initially 40 acres of land to start the camp. And again, they got nonprofit status in 1980 and got their permits that they needed. None of that stuff was easy. Permitting process, I don't know how many of you have done it, but it can be very long and drawn out sometimes. So they got everything going, and then from that point on, everything just started falling into place. One of the neat things about the history is Mr. Joe he said he sent out donation letters one time. And that time was a neat story as well, where he wanted to build a lake, and one person responded and he thought it wasn't going to happen, and then our cousin called and said, we're going to donate the rest of it, you just need to name the lake after my mom. So there's a sign that says Aunt Claire's Lake, and the lake was built. But Mr. Joe, everything has just been through the generosity of people, churches, groups. Most of the buildings out there were built through maybe a church group that came out, or and materials were donated. So it's definitely been a story of just God's provision throughout, and that's such a neat part of the history. But you mentioned, Josh, kind of coming in now. What is it? One of the things Heather and I feel very strongly about is we need to stay true to the vision and mission that Mr. Joe started out to create. But there's also things that we need to do to, kind of take the next steps. And that's some of the things that we're working on right now.
So you've mentioned to me, and we've talked with the guys about it as well. You just talk about like waiting on God's provision for things, and that's kind of the history of that camp in different ways. You guys find yourself in a very similar position right now.
Yep.
And it's a pretty serious thing that you guys are really waiting on God to come through. And this is one of the main reasons why we wanted you on, so you could share some of this. We can get our people praying for you, for Coldstream, and then who knows who might hear this and might have a way to meet kind of what's going on or to help. So as far as ways we can be praying, I know this is probably going to be the main thing, but give us a little bit of input on what's happening out there right now.
Yeah, definitely. So when we moved here last May, literally a couple of weeks that we were here, and groups started coming in that were renting out the facility. One of the last groups before our summer camp, there was an incident that happened where a couple of their campers fell on our suspension bridge and got injured. So we reported everything to our insurance company, and one thing led to another, and the insurance company is working with the families to ultimately reach a settlement of some type to pay out. But apparently the injuries, required some surgery, and so the insurance company is having to pay out, or they're anticipating they might have to pay out quite a bit. They ultimately decided not to renew our insurance. We found this out probably mid-April from the broker that we use. And ever since then, it's been a scramble because we need insurance. We need insurance to operate, not only for the groups that are coming in, but for our summer camp. Right now, we have one quote for liability insurance that is on the table that we have to decide before May 30th if we're going to accept it. That quote is $33,000 for the year. Comparatively speaking, last year, we paid a total of just under $11,000 for all of our insurance, property, liability, auto, just all of that. And so this one quote is for liability for $33,000. I can tell you right now, we don't have $33,000 sitting in the bank at Coldstream. So we basically need a miracle. And we have a group coming in next week. So we basically have to decide whether to accept this one policy, the only policy so far, or whether we shut down the camp temporarily until we secure a better offer. I can't tell you at this point what the plan's going to be. I know our board of directors are praying about it and trying to figure out what we're going to do. But if you can be praying for anything, pray for that. It's very, very large and looming. But I can also tell you that while it's pretty heavy, I really feel at peace that God's going to provide. So, yeah.
First, I apologize for my dog. We are home alone right now, and there's no one to...
You just wanted to be on the podcast.
I did. That's big. That's a big need. I think maybe here, Jeff, here in a second, before we end this, would you just pray for that?
Absolutely.
Here on the podcast, and as we record, and you guys have heard kind of the need there, and it's big. They have groups lined up, ready to go, which they can't accept until this insurance is in place. So we're praying for lower quotes, definitely, or God to come through to fund this one, and then maybe you can still shop it out for next year. Just to get camps going. So before we pause here, Jeff, hop on that for us if you don't mind, and let's pray for Coldstream.
Yes, let's pray. Heavenly Father, we know that you are sovereign God and that all things are in your hands. And so as we approach you specifically for Roger and his family, for Coldstream, and this camp, this ministry, Lord, we know that you are in control. And so it is with great trust that we come to you asking for prayer. And Lord, we thank you that you listen to our prayer. We know that we can cast all our anxiety upon you because you care for us. And so the anxiety that comes with the unknown, Lord, what makes sense in our minds sometimes, Father, you are in the business of defying that. So Lord, may we all have great trust, but Father, we do pray for a miracle in this situation with the insurance. We pray that, Father, there would be lower quotes. Father, we pray for the opportunity for ministry to continue. Father, we pray for wisdom in navigating this time. And Lord, we do pray for your intervention and working out this detail. Thank you for the peace that you've given Roger. And Father, it's just an example of you working in his life. But Father, with that, we pray asking you to work, knowing that you will work, Father, knowing that you are at work. And Lord, knowing there is a solution that is perhaps beyond all of our thoughts and even imagination, Lord, that you are working out now. We thank you for how you're working. We thank you for what you're doing. And we just pray that lives would be touched for your kingdom. There would be kids, adults, many who come through the camp that would soon come and learn about Jesus and find hope in a relationship with Christ. And so, Father, we pray for that to continue. You will work out all the details. We thank you in advance for how you're going to do that. And I pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. So we're going to take a break here, and when we come back, we've got some fun stuff for you. So thanks for being a part of part one, and we'll see you back in just a moment.
Oh man, these chips are stale.
You need to go to DudeFaxePodcast.com, where the content is never stale and the merch will keep you looking fresh.
Maybe if I go to DudeFaxePodcast.com, I don't have to worry about stale chips anymore. Oh, I forgot they were stale.
Head on over to DudeFaxePodcast.com for the latest episodes, all the great merch, and much more from your DudeFaxe dudes.
I was hoping this was Amish paradise.
I got kind of sad when it wasn't.
It would have been fitting for a discussion about Coldstream out in the country.
Yeah, maybe.
Is Coldstream a gangster's paradise, Roger?
No.
No.
I guess it depends on what your definition of gangster is.
It was when we were there.
I guess it depends on what group's coming.
Yeah,
too,
that's
right?
true. I mean, we've had some Austin P people come out there that are kind of, yeah.
Let's go pee. Well, hey, welcome to the second part of the DudeFaxe podcast. We are glad that you've stuck with us. We're glad to have our special guest, Roger Dunn from Coldstream. And guys, we've got to get to some basketball talk. We're not going to talk LeBron. So, Seco, if you're tuning in, you can watch LeBron on the sidelines.
We only talk about people who are still in the playoffs.
Oh,
That's right.
there you go.
So, Josh and Ryan, you guys are Mavs fans. I have a special place in my heart for the Mavs, living in that area for a while. But how are you guys enjoying the playoffs so far with the Mavs?
It's a mixture of excitement and sometimes tired disappointment when I stay up late to watch a game and they can't make a free throw.
That game the other night, that's exactly how we were.
Yeah.
We stayed up late, and they were up 14 most of the second half or something like that. And then you saw it coming. Those last few, you just saw it coming. And, if they had hit maybe, they shot like 40% from the free throw line.
Yeah, it was abysmal.
Yeah.
Let's just hope Luka is that bad when he's playing in the Olympics this summer against the U.S.
Yeah.
Then you'll be happy he's missing free throws.
I think Luka could be awesome when his team, Slovenia? Slovenia.
Slovenia.
I don't think it matters how good he is, because the rest of the team will be terrible compared to the U.S. team.
Well, I'm a Celtics fan. I'm very happy. They're back in the Eastern Conference Finals. Of course, they haven't really been tested yet. I think that's coming, but they might end up playing the Knicks. And Josh used to be a Knicks fan, right?
That's affirmative. I still like them. Out of the East, that's who I'd want to make it. But overall, I would much rather the Mavericks win it all than the Knicks.
I'd love to
Kinda
see.
cool.
I'd love to see Jason Kidd win it as a player and a coach with the Mavs. Be good.
Roger, do you pay attention to NBA?
I do. I'm a Grizzlies fan, and we all know how that went this year.
Enough said.
I did used to work in Boston, so by osmosis, I think, and I was close to TD Garden, my office, so maybe that sort of makes me a Celtics fan. By osmosis.
There we go. Oh, yeah. Well, Grizzlies, it's our home state team. Special place in our hearts, I think, for the Grizzlies, too. Hopefully, Ja can get his head straight, get back in there. But, speaking of all things Texas, as we talk about the Mavericks, we have some news out of Texas that we've got to talk about today. Josh, you sent this out. There's this mega church in Texas in Rockwall, which is a nice town in Texas, by the way. But it's a suburb of Dallas. But it commissioned a city-mandated study to get a new traffic light near the entrance to its parking lot, which seems normal. The church even hired an engineer firm to run it. But the staff at Lake Point Church in Rockwall, Texas, didn't only depend on the engineers to do their job, they tried to game the system a little bit. And so what they did is they sent out an email to their small group leaders urging them to encourage group members to sign up for a driving shift during the 5-day study to pad the numbers. And so each shift is basically a commitment to drive this prescribed route 10 times within the hour. But if you wanted to do more laps, you could do that too. And the church sent this out. The first two to sign up on the signupgenius.com link were two of the pastors. And somebody from the church decided to put this out on Facebook publicly for everyone to see. And now people are outraged at the shenanigans of this church. What do you guys think about this? Is this a smart thing, a dumb thing, a lack of integrity? Where do we fall on this?
Time for that.
I think some could see it. Some might see it as being a little dishonest, but I see it as more of a waste of time.
Yeah.
It just seems like, why?
So I saw a picture. I'm assuming the main entrance to the church hits this road and there's no light right there. So I'm assuming that's where they want to have a light, is at that main entrance. But I think we're supposed to do everything with honesty and above board, and I don't know. That seems a little
It's a little tricky.
Yeah.
I was just thinking too. We've done sign up things like this before, where we've had church members take a shift, but usually it's like, hey, let's do 24 hours of prayer, and you come in and take an hour shift. Maybe they should have done 24 hours of prayer for the traffic light rather than drive around. But maybe they were praying and driving. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean they could have. I don't know, they could have done a car wash or something to attract people into their parking lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, or I was going to say do church better all around and get more people coming through.
Well, I think they have like 16,000 people is what the article
said. Is that
said.
the problem? Is that they're
Their church.
upset because their parking lot takes a long time to get out of?
I think so.
Well, I know they have multiple campuses, and so
They can't beat the Methodist to the restaurant.
That's it.
Yeah.
They just need earlier dismissal.
Yeah. If you meet
That's true.
earlier, then you can get out earlier. That's the way it works.
Yeah.
They don't want to wake up. That's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, my pastor, if Kentucky was playing at any point in time on a Sunday, then church was out definitely in time to watch the game.
Yep, priorities.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why our late service ends at 11:30, especially during football season. So
People can catch the Titans.
yeah.
Gotta get to Chili's.
Well, and our pastor's a Cowboys fan. Most of their games are
sorry.
later, but he likes. Yeah, it's
It was, I don't know. It was one of those things. For him, I really wanted them to progress further in the playoffs. But, when they got bounced when they did, it was just sweet, And
as a Dallas area native, I think it should say a lot that Dallas Cowboys are the only Dallas team that I don't like root for.
That's true. Yeah, you went all the way to New England.
Yep.
Wait, you're a Patriots fan?
I am.
Oh. I'm a Buffalo Bills fan.
Oh.
And
do you jump on tables?
Maybe.
That should be live on the podcast.
Yeah,
it should be.
Oh. Maybe we could do a fundraiser for the insurance thing.
Or maybe wait, what's your future son-in-law's name? Ethan. Maybe Ethan could come be shirtless and jump. Yeah.
How about no?
I think that sounds like an awesome challenge, Ethan. Yes.
No, I've been a Bills fan for a long time. I've suffered through many. I suffered through the 4 straight losing Super Bowls, and I've suffered through the demise that Kansas City has put on them the past few years, and I'm sure I will continue suffering for a long time.
Well, if it's any consolation, Jeff and I as Patriots fans are suffering right now.
For the first time in 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel so sorry for you guys.
Yep.
Welcome to our world as Titans fans. Yep. They were decent a couple of years. I mean, we have that one win that we'll never forget. It was our Super Bowl when we knocked the Patriots out in Foxborough.
Oh, not when you went to the Super Bowl.
No. It's when we beat the Patriots in Foxborough a couple of years ago. Yeah, that. And when we intercepted what we thought was going to be Tom Brady's last pass ever, and then he goes to the Bucs and
wins another Super Bowl.
Wins another Super Bowl.
Yeah, just keeps on winning.
Man.
Oh, man.
By the way, did y'all see the schedule release videos yesterday?
I did.
Some of them. I haven't.
Yeah, I admit the Patriots was one of the top ones. They had like this Julian Edelman and Rob Gronkowski, and it was like a spoof on Good Will Hunting. You need to look it
watch
up.
That. I'll look it up.
By the way, the Patriots coming to Nashville November 3rd. So
Oh, wow.
might need to make that happen.
We might have to go to that.
So, yeah. DudeFaxe at the Titans game.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we talked about this church and getting back to their wild story. Have you guys ever seen a church try to do something, scheme like this, or maybe just make a decision planning something that just turned out to be a total ridiculous flop?
Judgment House?
Buying iPads to attract youth?
I was thinking of putting notes on cars of people parked in like your auxiliary parking lot, telling them to not park there, but to also come visit your church.
We will tell you next time, but hey, come visit our church.
Yeah, I remember that. That was great.
It was fun.
That was great.
So when I was a youth pastor at the church Ryan grew up at in Texas, our parking lot was right down the road from the high school, and it was a common thing for some high schoolers to skip or whatever and drive to our empty parking lot during the school day, and that was a parking spot for couples to smooch and fog up windows. So it was great when we had like an old deacon there, because he would just go out and confront him.
What was it the one time he said he caught somebody and they were like, "Oh yeah, we were just eating or something like that." I had never seen nobody eat laying down.
Carl Roach.
Oh yeah,
Carl, if you're listening, I don't even know if he's still alive, but
I hope so.
Oh, Carl, he was awesome.
So many fond memories of Carl Roach.
See, the The Peckerwood guy?
Yep. That's it.
Yep. He is the Peckerwood guy. He would use that term quite frequently.
Oh, regularly.
Well, hopefully you guys aren't planning any weird shenanigans at your churches and not gaming the system. Let's just hope that Rockwall gets their light, but they get it in a fair and appropriate way.
Well, I was thinking, before we move on, I think another way that churches do it is when they create their websites, they use like these stock photos and of happy people, full rooms, all that, and you show up and it is not. Like, this is not the same. This isn't the same building. These aren't the same people, and there's 4 in here as opposed to the 400 that were on that picture.
It's hotels do that too a lot of times.
Yeah.
You book a hotel and you're like, this looks nice, and you get there and you're like, no, that was like maybe the one room that they keep nice, but the rest of them.
It's always just pictures of like random people that I'm pretty sure are just like low time actors or somebody from like Montreal or something. Just
like the people that are
random city.
It's like the people that are in the picture frames.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
like the same people that show up all the time. Well, it's food advertising.
Yeah.
Like you see an ad for a Burger King burger and you endure that horrific song jingle and you're like, I'm gonna go get one of those, and then it looks like the jingle sounds. Nothing like it.
Well, I did read that this isn't the only controversy that this church in Rockwall has had since they've gotten this new pastor. I think in 2021, he has had his fair share of controversy, but earlier this year he came under fire for telling women how to act on their wedding night in order to fulfill their husband's desires. And he said, and I quote, just stand where he tells you to stand, wear what he tells you to wear, and do what he tells you to do, and you're going to make him the happiest man in the world. So,
Okay. It's one way to think about it.
People still attend there? He needs it.
I was like, that new husband may be the happiest man in the world, but I don't know if that's going to be the happiest marriage in the world.
It's just a church filled with men.
maybe that was his way to cut down on traffic so that they don't have to get a light.
Oh, okay. So he has a plan.
Yeah.
That's right.
Thin this herd out a little bit.
That's right. You know, every pastor needs that person in their life that is willing to say, that was the dumbest thing I've ever heard someone say. And that guy doesn't have it. I wonder is he married?
That I don't know.
That might be the problem.
Well, we want to do something that we haven't done in a little while, maybe a couple of months. We want to have a holy hypothetical and have you join in the conversation with us today. So let's cue the music. There it is. All right, so this holy hypothetical, I am not the author of this. I don't even remember what I was looking through online, but I found myself in a comment section, which is always sketchy and dangerous. But I came across this comment, and it brings up a beautiful hypothetical situation that I thought we could talk about today. And here it is. There are 49 million kangaroos in Australia. I didn't fact check this, but let's just pretend. 49 million kangaroos in Australia. And there's 3.5 million people in Uruguay, which means if the kangaroos were to invade Uruguay, each person would have to fight 14 kangaroos. So if this actually happened, what do you think is going to go on during this kangaroo versus Uruguay battle of epic proportions?
So first off, I think the numbers might be a tiny bit skewed just because how are the Kangaroos getting to Uruguay?
Yeah.
Chartered flights.
Oh, because in my mind, I'm picturing like a kangaroo navy. Like they got to man the ships. Like so, there's gonna be less boots on the ground or paws, whatever kangaroos have. And so I was thinking that it might like tone down the number a little bit
Because some have to stay on board.
Yeah, there's got to be auxiliary positions for this kangaroo.
48 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw a video just today of a guy, and I'm guessing they're in Australia. There's a baby kangaroo in his yard. He had a fenced-in yard, and they couldn't get it to move or whatever. He went and bought a kangaroo outfit that had a pouch, and he wore it and went up to that kangaroo and opened the pouch, and that kangaroo came and crawled into it, thinking this is his mom. So that's probably the answer. If the Uruguayans want to defeat the kangaroos, they need to dress up like super big kangaroos because these are, I guess, full grown.
Yeah,
and
that's a good strategy.
Pockets and let them climb into the pouch.
You're like 4 or 5 people, and they like get into a kangaroo suit, kind of like Ultron. They form, like a massive kangaroo,
like mecha kangaroo.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they can fit multiple kangaroos in the pouch. And then take them back to Australia.
This sounds like a fun camp activity, Roger.
Oh, maybe. Yeah. No, Jeff, my question is, do you have a demographic of like ages and all of that of these kangaroos? Because I'm kind of going on the theory that there's not going to be 49 million of them coming over.
Or if there are, you got a bunch of small ones.
Right.
Yeah, because it's not going to be 49 million adult kangaroos.
Right.
And the affirmed... the older.
You're gonna have some senior citizen kangaroos trying to fight you, and those would be easy. You could pick them off quick.
So what was the original number? 14 kangaroos a person.
Yeah,
14 to 1.
I mean, I think I could foreseeably definitely take out at least like 8 or 9 of them.
So what would you take
give
them
a little
out
trouble
with?
after that? I'd probably use my feet. I get some crutches and then like just kick them.
Like so you get a little bit of
and get like a pendulum action going on. Yeah,
I thought you were just gonna have them smell your feet.
Oh, I can do that too. I'll tell you, that'll be
so
like
grossed out.
It'll be a dual air attack. It'll be kind of like a, I'll take my shoes off and then swing my feet at them. That way, if I miss them, they just fall.
So I think I'd have my future son-in-law over.
Oh,
and get him to take his shirt off, climb up on the roof, and like drop a suplex down on him.
Roger could jump off like he's jumping onto a table, but jump onto the kangaroos.
Kangaroo,
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. You see people box kangaroos with the boxing gloves and everything like that. What if that's how the war has to be held? Like if they come to an agreement with the kangaroos, we will only box you. Could you beat 14 kangaroos boxing?
I think they're about to take over.
Yeah.
And it's going to be Planet of the Kangaroos.
You remember Crocodile Dundee, where Crocodile Dundee is, picking off these kangaroo poachers? These guys are going through the outback. They're shooting kangaroos just for fun. And then he picks up a dead kangaroo and then gives that dead kangaroo a rifle or a shotgun and starts firing at these drunk poachers. I imagine Uruguay can maybe have a strategy like that to where they kill a couple of kangaroos, maybe like a Goliath kangaroo, and then give that Goliath kangaroo like a sword or some type of automatic rifle and have it start attacking, kind of like a Weekend at Bernie's thing going on with kangaroos, start attacking the other kangaroos. The kangaroos just freak out and they get back on their boats and sail back to Australia or another country that's maybe vulnerable to kangaroo attacks.
Or they think that they're being attacked from the inside and then start attacking each other.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Hey, if you're still listening to the podcast, why don't you hit the like button there?
This is quality discussion.
Oh, yeah.
That's great.
I'm going to go back to school and write a thesis on this.
Somebody will research this. If it got out there
Hey, it's got you covered.
against kangaroo attacks. So.
Now, I'm just curious about how to make it a camp activity, like you said, Josh.
I think if you guys could just acquire one kangaroo, just release it,
Yeah.
out there,
Then we would. Oh, yeah.
and just see what happens.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, we might need to figure out how to. What do kangaroos eat? Like, we need to figure out how to.
Sixth graders, just
Bass and crappie.
Okay. Yeah. How to make it more native for them.
For the purposes of any prospective insurance agencies, that's a
That's
joke.
right.
yeah. We should clarify there are no loose kangaroos.
Yeah.
At Coldstream.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That would be interesting to box one, though. I hear they're pretty good boxers. So they've got kind of a natural,
And you seen the pictures of some of
boxing
them,
stance.
Yeah,
Jacked.
and they're jacked. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Look like Ethan.
I wouldn't want to mess with one.
Giving you a hard
Maybe
time, buddy.
that's what we should do. Ethan versus a kangaroo live on the podcast.
But the kangaroo is Ryan dressed up as one.
Ooh, even better.
In case we can't get a real one.
Yeah.
Just our backup plan. Nothing like warming up at 2 a.m. with a sweaty hunk.
I'd be a sweaty hunk if I put a kangaroo suit on.
Well, on that note, we hope you've had fun and learned something valuable in the second session. We are going to continue to talk to our guest, Roger, in the third session of the DudeFaxe podcast. We'll learn a little bit more about Coldstream and even the importance of retreat and getting away and some of the things that Coldstream can offer that are healthy for us spiritually and biblically. And I look forward to having that discussion. Hopefully you do too. And hey, if you have some funny banter to add to some of these goofy things we talked about in this section, or serious comments in the other sections as well, please comment those things. We love hearing from you guys. And of course, a lot of times we even have a comments time on the show where we read those comments. So if you write something, we may read it, and you better believe that we're at least going to see it and interact with it in some way. So make sure that you're joining the conversation that way, even if you aren't here physically with us. But we hope you stick around and that you're here with us after this.
My name is Roger Dunn. I'm the camp director out at Coldstream Christian Camp in Adams, Tennessee. We are experiencing a really big need right now. We are trying to secure insurance for our camp so we can continue our ministry to both children, adults, and family. If there's any way that you could help us out, number one, by praying for us. Number two, financially, if there's any way that you could give towards this cause, just go to your phone. You can call 615-696-2208, or you can reach out at roger@coldstreamchristiancamp.org. That's my email address. Again, thank you so much.
All right, we want to welcome you to part 3 of the DudeFaxe podcast. I'm so glad you stuck around after that titillating conversation of kangaroos and Uruguayans. Jeff, that was a good, fun conversation. But now I'm just still trying to figure that out, work out the math in my head of how we can do it. So we're going to, as we told you earlier, we're going to take some time to talk about spiritual rest. We understand the idea of rest for the most part, and relaxing and taking some time off and all that when we need it physically. But what about when we need it spiritually? Like how do we know we're at that spot where we just need to unplug so that we can reconnect with our Father in heaven, and that we can recover spiritually? It's something that we all need different times in our life. So we want to discuss that a little bit, what it looks like, why is it important, and how can we begin to pursue that and even make it part of the rhythm of our life. So, Jeff, we were talking earlier. Spiritual rest is something that you've got kind of an experience on over the last few years that you didn't really realize was for that purpose, but that God used in your life. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. Spiritual rest is important for us all. And it's really just being able to pull away. Like when Roger was talking earlier about, the rule on not having electronics and cell phones, so that you can get off social media. We don't realize how much we need that. And I remember when COVID first happened, I was up in New York, West Point, which is actually right in the mountains. And so it's a beautiful area, a lot of nature trails and places to walk and hike and just see God's beauty. And I had done some exploring, but when COVID shut everything down, I was sort of forced to do nothing but rest, listen, and really take it slow. And so I began what I was frustrated with at first, because my norm was being upset. I ended up loving, because I was able to spend a lot of time just walking through the woods, sitting by the Hudson River, and just reflecting and praying. And it was so nourishing for me. I think for me, I was in an extremely busy season, was doing a lot of ministry, was getting a little burned out, and God used that as a way just to sort of give me some rest, speak some things into me. And all that was important by retreating. I remember one day just sitting on the banks of the Hudson River, kind of high up on this sort of cliff-like area, and I'm just watching the water and just admiring God's creation. And no joke, a bald eagle comes flying out of a tree right over my head, and it kind of freaked me out. But wow, it was just, I had the thought, if life were normal right now, I probably would have been in the house watching some sport or busy with something, rather than getting to experience just sitting next to this majestic river and having this majestic creature just fly right over my head. And it really made me appreciate how God knows what's best, and the fact that I don't, and he will still work those things out with his sovereign hand. And so there's so much health in it, and we need that time just to break contact with the chaotic world and spend time in God's creation.
I had a similar experience. I know you guys have heard, I won't belabor it, but, I was out of work for a little bit because of an illness, and I didn't work for about a year and a half, and I didn't realize until I was into this season of life where I was just kind of home. And I had a great back deck that looked out over the woods, and it was covered, and it was just I lived out there for about 12 months, it seemed like. And I remember my dad one day, I think I was complaining about getting bored and really wanted to get into being able to work. And I needed to be out of, and I was out of ministry for a while. I needed that for other situations that we've talked about. But I didn't really consider that I needed rest spiritually during that time. And I began to realize when I was just kind of burdened and burned out by some things. But my dad mentioned something to me. He said, in the 23rd Psalm, where it talks about the Lord being our good shepherd, there's a phrase in there that says he makes us lie down in green pastures, and he restores our soul. In there as well. And he said, there's times when we're not taking the initiative or making the priority of making sure we're aligned in clearly and rightly with the Lord, and that he may send things into our life that make us lie down and make us rest. And I feel like that was definitely a part of what was going on in my life. There's various ways he could have addressed the spiritual illness that was in my life, but he chose to do it through a physical illness that required about a year of not having anything else to do. And not feeling like I could do anything else. My time was at home on a deck with books, with music. That was basically it. And as I went through that time, there were all these revelations that God kept bringing to me that of things that were draining me, even good things that I didn't have in the right priority, or I put too much energy or focus on, a lot of things that were all about self. And I would do things for what other people would think of me. And he was just bringing all this out. And I needed time where I was disconnected, basically. I hopped off social media. I was just with my family. And he was able to kind of speak into those things. And without those distractions, and because I was listening, I got to a point where I was just trying to listen to what he had to say. And so spiritual rest is one of those things I think is necessary for us to really be able to cut through the distraction and hear from God more clearly. And though, the story I shared, the story Jeff shared, that kind of came through times when maybe we didn't really know we needed it or weren't really looking for it, but it came. What are some things maybe you guys have had in your experiences where maybe you came to a point and you're like, I need time to rest and to do it to where my spirit is recovering? And how did you know that? Does anybody have anything they can share on that?
I think I would definitely say, I don't know, a couple years ago, before I started my current job that I'm at now, I was at a place where I just was feeling really stressed out constantly. And I was feeling just really kind of stuck in the place I was in life. And I think through some time, just alone, I got to a point where I was doing a lot of work that had me solitary, and I was doing a lot of driving, so getting a lot of window time, and also going out to work sites and stuff where I was just by myself the whole time, and so it was a lot of time to think and a lot of time for me to reflect on what was going on in my life. And I think that allowed me just that kind of disconnection from other people, and a lot of times I would just sit there in silence while I was driving or doing whatever I'm doing, and it really just allowed me to reflect on my place in life and kind of like why I'm feeling that way. And I felt like God really used that in me to kind of open up a desire or a kind of a renewed purpose, and finding something and really getting out there. And I was able to just by a little while after that, by chance, I was able to kind of find the position I'm at now and working, and I feel much more fulfilled and purposeful in that. And I really do feel like that was an act of God in my life, and he used that time of me kind of having no other distractions that, a normal person, you would look at that time in your life and think that, it's just kind of monotonous and there's nothing really special about it. But for me, it was a point of renewal just because I was able to think and not be bogged down by other things going on, and, having just alone time, but also, time with the Lord.
I think this is important for us to talk about, because we live in, we all are in a society, no matter what we do, that is constantly a pull on our spiritual health. And, it's everywhere. And I'm not saying our generation, our time is maybe any different. There's been issues since day one, or maybe day 8 or 9 or 10. We don't really know when the fall happened. sometime after day 7. But there's been, our enemy has been at work to pull our attention from the Lord and place it on other things that really aren't meaningful or worthwhile. And but all you have to do is just kind of think, like maybe tomorrow as you're out and about, like, okay, where is it that just society, culture, the world is a pull on me spiritually? And I think it's almost every single moment, every single situation that we get into, there's always this, especially for Jesus followers, that's really who this conversation is for, that everything in us, as far as our natural self, is wanting to respond certain ways that preserve self and work well for us. But then there's this internal battle between ourself and then the new creation that we have, the Spirit of God in us, to respond differently. And so in all of our decision making, there's usually a tension there. And over time, even throughout the day, man, you can get to a point where you can feel this heaviness. I don't know, that's kind of what it is for me, like almost a heavy and empty, a hunger kind of in my soul of, man, today it's just been difficult. Like it's just worn me and worn me out, not warned me. But that is kind of a warning. And so I think that there's room and a place for daily renewal of our spirit. And then I think there's seasonal time to do that. If we go through something that's been really draining, really difficult. And recognizing that I don't think is a weakness makes me think of Matthew 11:28 when Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and you have these heavy burdens." He says, "I'm going to give you rest." Life is a burden at times, and following Jesus can be burdensome when we're kind of battling against the things of the world, but he himself is not. And he simply calls us to come to him in those times. So with that in mind, and we're thinking through, okay, what is spiritual rest? How would you define that for someone who maybe they haven't heard this idea or this phrase before? Like this is what it means to rest spiritually.
I think it's summed up really in that famous verse from Psalms, be still and know that I am God. It's the idea of slowing down and listening. Slowing down and listening. And I think what we need is God above all. And, during, our chaotic lives and busy lives, we obviously need that rest. And so it's just slowing down from the norm and taking time to listen to God and letting him fill us. When we talked about prayer about a month ago, we talked about the importance of communicating to God, but how important it is to slow down and listen to God. It's a two-way conversation. In fact, we need to do a whole lot more listening than just sharing our laundry list sometimes. And that's what I think of when I think of spiritual rest. It's that just pausing from the norm and listening to God and letting him restore us, restore our soul.
So how do we practice that then? Like, what are some things that maybe we would want to begin to maybe put into place? If okay, I need this. Like, how do I begin to do that? Like, how do I begin to be still? What does that mean in that moment?
I think we got to carve out time for it. It's got to be sacred on our calendars, to the point of where we don't compromise that time with something else because we're too busy. Mm-hmm. It's got to be sacred, but we also have to look for opportunities to break away and use resources like Roger and the camp that he does. And there are a lot of great resources out there that we can take advantage of. And our problem is we just don't take advantage of it. We oftentimes think that sounds great and I want to do that, but I just don't have time for it. And so it's making the conscious effort to understand that, in our line of work, especially, a lot of us are caregivers. The caregiver needs care. And so we have to prioritize that, not look at it as something selfish, but look at it as this is necessary for my growth and necessary for me to do what God has called me to do by taking time to rest and making that sacred.
Does Coldstream have some good places to find that?
Definitely. One of the when I came to visit, I came to visit February of 2023 before officially accepting the position, and I just remember walking around the property, and when I was younger, in high school, right across the street from our house was this huge oak tree, and that was my thinking tree. That was my praying tree. That's where I would go and quiet my heart and just talk to God and write cheesy poetry and all of that type of stuff. But
Did you bring any of that with you?
no. I think I think it's in storage at my mom's somewhere, because that's what adults do, is keep stuff at their mom's for a long time. But yeah, I just remember walking around the property, and there's a place where the springs come out and feed into the lake, and there's a trail that goes up through there, and there's a gazebo where you can sit, and I just like listening. There's something about like a rushing waterfall type of sound that just is very soothing to me, and I'm sure to a lot of people it's very soothing. And I remember stopping and listening, and you could hear the spring, and I was kind of on one end of the lake, and I could still hear it, and I walked closer, and it just had this sense of like peace that goes beyond all understanding, and then I continued my walk, and I think the moment that I really heard from God, I had stopped and I looked, and I was standing right next to another oak tree, and I'm like, oh, you're bringing me back there. But yeah, Coldstream, one of Mr. Joe's visions when he first started the camp was that it would be a place of rest and comfort, specifically for pastors and missionaries coming out of the field. And I know he still has that desire. It hasn't quite worked out, although, I mean, we definitely host, missionaries sometimes that are coming out, and we'll give them a chance to come in and just spend a few days. I think, Mr. Joe had really wanted it to be where, somebody could come in and spend 2 or 3 weeks, if need be, and just kind of just rest. And that's one of the things that my wife and I have been praying through, is how do we stay true to that, that vision. And I think God's giving me the sense that he's still working. He's not finished with Coldstream yet. He's not, there's been some wonderful things that have been done through Coldstream, but there's a lot of things that he still has yet to do for the glory of his kingdom.
I agree with that. You can just kind of sense it out there. That there's something about to happen out there. You just kind of feel it. And this idea of spiritual rest and pursuing it. It's we talked a little bit in the break amongst ourselves that we can maybe think spiritual rest is something different than what it actually is. I know tradition I grew up in. Sunday was the day of rest, right? Like that's where we rested spiritually. And the way I rested spiritually during the football season was watching the football game and then turning right around and getting ready to go back to Sunday night church. And that was our day of rest, spiritual rest. Sunday we can get into this conversation at some point about like, well, should we work on Sunday? Should we do this on Sunday? All that. But this is more of having maybe this rhythm in your life where you recognize, I need to have time where I limit what's coming in and I control my thoughts, what I'm allowing to be in my mind. And as Jeff said, having time that we're really listening. There's a book I'm reading right now by a guy named Steve Austin, who I'm hoping to have on the podcast at some point. Stone Cold, yeah. Oh, man. I'm not going to tell you it's not because I want guys to be really excited about that. But he
Stone Cold.
This guy, he leads this ministry to inmates who are being released. And it's all about making sure they can transition in a healthy way out of that to where they don't go back. But he talks a lot in his book about what he calls the 95-5 prayer. And it's basically it's 5% talking and 95% listening. So you get in a room and you think if you're there for an hour, you talk for 5 minutes to God. And then you just make yourself sit and listen to him. And that's kind of the idea of spiritual rest. Because we can say, well, I've had my quiet time. I've read, I wrote, I journaled, I did this, I did that. And then we're just busy in that time. And not that any of those things are bad, but the opportunity to settle your heart and come to Jesus, whose burden or whose yoke is easy, whose burden is light. And let him speak to you about who he is and who we are in him, and begin to drop these things in our heart and mind of what he wants from us. And I think this is something that should be just in our rhythm often. Maybe it's not every day you do that, but maybe once a week or so. Even then up to as you can and have opportunity, get out to places, get out in nature. Maybe a place like Coldstream. I know you guys have a great cabin right on the lake there, which has a beautiful view. And it's actually called the Lake View Cabin, right? Is that right?
Yeah, Lakeside Cottage.
Lakeside Cottage. I was way off. Great place. You can go and do that. There's a big house there as well. I've got a friend, actually, the three of us, Jeff and Ryan, know him. His name's Ron, and he has a little cabin that literally sits off the edge of a cliff. The only part of the cabin that's on the ground is the front wall. Everything else is extended. And you get a little, when you pull up to it, like, is this going to... But it holds. But when you get out, I've gone there several times. I just went there a month ago, and for the purpose of some spiritual renewal. And get out on that back patio, and it's like you're up in a treehouse. You're up in the trees, and just had some time to do that. Now, I couldn't do that every week. People don't have the margin really to do that. But every now and then, really withdrawing, or it's a walk through nature, like down a trail, and just keeping your ears open to what God might want to say to you. So this is something we just want to encourage our listeners to practice, to participate in. I think it's not just a good add-on, but I think it's something that's vital for spiritual health. And so we hope that maybe this little short discussion on it will encourage you to put that just into the routine of your life. Do you guys want to? Is there anything you still want to add into that we hadn't really discussed? Awesome. Well, we do want to thank you for being with us for this episode. Roger, thanks so much, man, for taking the 8 minutes to drive down here and hop in.
Thank you.
Man, we are praying for Coldstream, for you and your wife and your family, and just that God will come through in that miraculous way. We know he can. He's got the resources. I'll tell you, I'll talk about Roger here before he leaves. We were a part of a home group together as well at the church, and he was sharing this need. He and his wife were sharing this need with our home group. And I know you guys there's of course some anxiety and some stress that comes with it, which is natural. But they were so like even killed about it when you're sharing, like, but God's got it. Like he knew, you know, you're facing, we need $33,000 in like 2 weeks so we can host these camps people have already paid for.
Yeah.
Or we got a refund.
Yeah.
You know, and I do appreciate the attitude that you guys have, and I think I think he's able to walk with this, listeners, and this way because he listens to the Lord, because he draws near, because he takes the time to rest and let God speak into his soul. So appreciate that in you, friend.
Awesome.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining with us. We want to remind you that merch right now is at cost, and I'll say to the end of the week that this episode airs. After that, it will increase so that we can pay the bills, right? So if you want to get some cool stuff, Jeff actually is wearing our Jesus Jokes But No Jerks shirt, and a lot of great stuff on there. Go to DudeFaxePodcast.com. You'll see all of our stuff, and right now, coffee mugs, shirts, a hat, all that cost. It's extremely cheap. So go buy stuff, wear it, support the podcast, and we appreciate it. Talk to you guys next time.